The world was worrying about war when rancher W. Brazel walked into the sheriff's office in Corona, NM, on a hot, dusty day 75 years ago to report a flying disc he might have found on his property about 100 miles northwest of Roswell Army Airfield. Yes, you heard it right, and we will tell you about every detail of this Roswell UFO incident. So make sure to watch the video till the end to learn more about this incident. On July 8, 1947, the public information officer at the base issued a news release stating the U.S. Army Air Forces had recovered a flying saucer at the ranch. While military brass quickly retracted the statement, it was too late. The legend of Roswell as the UFO capital of the world was already soaring, much like the countless bright objects many Americans claim to have seen in the sky that summer. A U.S. Army air base in Roswell, New Mexico, issued a statement saying that it had found the wreckage of a crashed flying saucer. A few days later, the base withdrew the story. It claimed that all it had found was debris from a weather balloon. In 1978, however, the retiring intelligence officer of the base declared on TV that the first statement had been true. Since then, the story has run and run. The story starts in 1947, year zero for ufologists, and a time when the imagery of UFOs reflected fears about technological catastrophe and foreign invasion. The event that we know today as the Roswell Incident gave birth to the modern movement of UFO sightings, along with the genre of alien science fiction. For centuries, people have seen things they can't explain, said Roger Launius, a historian and the retired curator of the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum. In earlier generations, they referred to them as angels, demons, deities, or whatever. That changes with the scientific revolution, where people began to wonder if the points of light they see are alien in nature. The fertile ground for Roswell was sown under the darkening mushroom cloud of the nuclear age. World War II had ended less than 2 years earlier, and the United States and Soviet Union seemed to be on the precipice of another global conflict. The term Cold War was coined by George Orwell in a 1945 essay and entered the modern consciousness when Bernard Baruch, an advisor to President Harry Truman, uttered it in a speech in the spring of 1947. Amid this heightened apprehension came the first news of flying saucers and the term's first mention in print, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, on June 24. Media across the country reported that a civilian pilot named Ken Arnold said he'd spotted bright objects streaking across the sky at supersonic speeds near Mount Rainier in Washington. Some officials suggested the fast-moving lights might have been rockets or jets being tested by the military. Nonetheless, public hysteria erupted over the next few weeks, with more than 800 similar sightings being reported across the country, many of them deemed copycat events by law enforcement and military officials. When Ken Arnold sees this stuff, it's told in an overblown tabloid way. It gets hyped up in the press and builds from there. If the present doesn't tell you that Americans love conspiracies, I don't know what does. It wasn't any different in 1947. While all this was happening, an unsuspecting Brazel was tending the sheep and cattle on his New Mexico ranch. With no radio or newspaper, he was isolated from the outside world. The rancher gave little thought to the unusual debris he found scattered around his pastures. On July 5, Brazel headed into Corona on a Saturday night and learned what everyone else had been talking about. He began to wonder whether there was a connection. On Monday, he gathered up the strange material and traveled back into town to inform local officials of his discovery. The sheriff visited Brazel's ranch, then contacted the military. The debris was transported to Fort Worth Army Airfield in Texas, where military experts proclaimed it was from a crashed weather balloon. However, before that pronouncement was relayed back to Roswell, the New Mexico base sent out the news release about finding a flying saucer. Lieutenant Walter Haut, Roswell's public information officer, later claimed that Base Commander Colonel William A. Blanchard had ordered him to use that description. For a few days, the world's attention was focused on Roswell, but most people seemed satisfied with the military's explanation, and the story quickly faded. It would not blow up again until 1978, when the National Enquirer ran an article about the incident. All of a sudden, new versions of the event emerged, some from the original participants, with reports of an actual spacecraft, alien bodies, and a government cover-up adding new layers to the legend. The story seems to get better with each retelling. Initially, there was no discussion whatsoever of alien bodies. That somehow gets wrapped in it as part of the original incident, even though there is nothing about it in the sources of the time. The story evolved with a seemingly endless array of articles, books, movies, and documentaries about what really happened in the New Mexico desert. In 1993, television audiences were introduced to the long-running series The X-Files, whose fictional stories of FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully tracking down alien abductions and an international conspiracy only added fuel to the fire. Many involved with the incident altered their descriptions of events over time, including the government. In 1947, the CIA and military were concerned that these flying saucers were actually new technology being used by the Soviets. When the Army Air Forces retracted its first statement, it was less than forthcoming about the debris' origins, likely because it was hiding a secret. The weather balloon was a cover story, Lonnie has said. The best evidence suggests that this was a Project Mogul listening device that they recovered pieces of. Project Mogul was a military program designed to detect sound waves from Soviet nuclear tests via high-altitude balloons, which would eventually deflate and fall to the Earth. Several crash sites have been identified around the country. In 1994, a U.S. Air Force report identified the top-secret project as the likely source of the debris found in New Mexico. The UFO sightings of the summer of 1947 were the result of a world consumed by fear of an apocalypse. Just in the United States between 1947 and 1960, there were a total of 6,523 UFO reports. There seems to be a direct tie between public perception of the reality of space travel and these UFO sightings. I am convinced that the rapid rise in the number of UFOs reported in the early Cold War era was the result of heightened tensions as everyone watched the skies for warning of a nuclear attack. But even if the Roswell incident could be explained by a military program, subsequent events in the skies remain a mystery. On July 19, 1952, almost exactly 5 years after Brazel reported the strange debris on his ranch, a series of UFO sightings occurred over Washington, D.C. Airline pilots reported seeing flashes of light streaking across the sky, and radar operators were perplexed by fast-moving blips on their screens. The Air Force scrambled jets to intercept the objects, which disappeared and never returned. The event 70 years ago has never been explained. As the poster in Mulder's office in The X-Files reads, "I want to believe." In 1947, an unusual object crashed in the New Mexico desert and was recovered by the Roswell Army Airfield officers. People everywhere began to speculate what the object could be. Could it possibly be a flying saucer? Would that be proof of aliens and life beyond Earth? Even decades later, some people still believe that the Roswell incident is the most famous UFO sighting ever. Still, those who worked at the airfield insist it was just a weather balloon that had fallen from the sky. Was the Roswell incident evidence of alien life, a government cover-up, or just a myth? That's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I also leave this incident to your beliefs. What do you think really happened? Was it really a UFO sightings? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to stay connected and get updates on new videos and amazing content. Stay tuned and thank you for watching the video.